Welcome to our school district podcast, Ahoy, Minnetonka. I'm your host, Superintendent of Minnetonka Schools, David Law. We kicked off this school year with a great podcast episode with two of our school board members to talk about our goals and the year ahead. Now, just past midway through the school year, we've invited the school board back to talk about how the school year is going, and we'll focus in on finances, facilities, well-being, and community engagement. Joining me today are two of our school board leaders, Vice Chair Kemerie Foss and Treasurer Dan Olson. Welcome to both of you. Tell me a little bit about your background with the district and why you chose to be on the school board.
Sure, thank you. Let's see, I'm on my second year of the school board, the vice chair this year, and I've been involved and around the school district for many years, first as in the kindergarten as a room parent, and then PTO, PTA, and then on the Minnetonka Public Schools Foundation board, raising money for the schools, and then realized that I really wanted to continue supporting for future generations and join the school board, and have really enjoyed it so far.
Awesome. How about you, Dan?
Kind of a parallel story. I wasn't as involved in advance of my time on the school board as Kemerie, but I've got twin boys and we love this district, and they're probably only halfway through their public school journey. So it just suddenly became really important to me to get involved and want to leave this place better than we found it.
So one of the things community members don't know is, what do you do as a school board member? What's the weekly cycle? What are some of the things that are assignments? What are some of the challenges?
We do a lot of committee meetings. I'm on the finance committee and some other financial related committees, but and then we meet as a board twice a month, once in a formal meeting and then once in a study session. That's a little more informal, that allows us to discuss things before they come before us to vote on. But the primary job is being out there and listening to the community and trying to put yourselves in as many places as possible to hear as many different voices as possible to bring those perspectives to the work that we're doing as a school district.
I would say our main goal is goal setting for the district, so that the administration, the staff, and the teachers can work toward those goals. And really our primary focus is our one employee, which is Superintendent Law, and making sure that the district is following the goals that we set. And there's really, as a board, we have 7 of us, and there's no one individual on the board that has power. So we work together as a cohesive unit, and we do that really well, I would say.
One of the things the public probably doesn't realize are all the ways you gather input to inform goal setting. What are some of the things that stick out in your mind as ways you've gathered broad community input that was persuasive to you for goal setting?
It starts with the surveys that our communications department runs every year, reaching out to teachers, reaching out to parents, talking to students to see what they want. But we've gone to the high school and sat down and done student listening forums with them. We're each tracking with a group of students in a specific grade as they progress through their high school journey. We've gone into all the buildings to meet with teachers and faculty members and get their feedback on our goals and to ideate on what the next iteration of these things might be. And then I think it's just, as individuals, you grab a coffee with another parent or something like that whenever you can to hear what's important to them.
Yeah. It's been my experience that the board hopes to meet community expectations with goal setting. And our goals that we have, the big buckets of work are excellence in student climate experience, welcoming, belonging, connectedness, excellence in student learning, and excellence in leadership and organizational support. Under each of those buckets, there are some action items. Let's talk a little bit first about student learning. What are some of the areas of focus in student learning this year that we've reported at the board, or you feel like we're making progress?
One of the biggest areas that was a priority before Kemerie and I even joined the board were our middle schools and programming available to our middle school students. We recently voted to, I don't know, is it a block schedule? Is that what we call so we recently voted to change the curriculum from its current 6-hour iteration to a block schedule, and that's going to open up a bunch more elective opportunities that our students can take in advance of getting to high school, so they can explore those interests earlier and figure out where they want to be when they land in 9th grade. And it's also going to allow us to do, special interventions in social emotional learning and things like that without having to pull them out of their classes and take away instructional time. So it's really going to offer a great breadth of opportunity and allow us as educators to do a lot more for the kids and do right by the kids.
And that was from listening to the community and really wanting to take part in what a lot of other schools around us were doing as far as middle school programming, and it'll help with advisory, and having the Spanish immersion program now have advisory as well. So we're really looking forward to it. It'll be a little bit of a transition, but it'll be, in the long run, it'll provide a lot of advantages as well. Yeah.
Sometimes we hear from the community, you should be focusing on the basics. And one of the big buckets of work we're doing this year is literacy. From a board member perspective, what does it look like to be receiving this information? How would you put in your own words the work that we're doing with literacy?
Well, and I think our recent podcast that just came out today with Dr. Amy Ledoux, they have been on the forefront of keeping up with the READ Act and updating the board consistently on staying at the forefront, ahead of the READ Act. That's been sort of a little bit of a moving target from MDE. From a professional learning standpoint, they have been ahead of keeping our teachers very informed, training, updating all of the materials, and then providing the board really updated on how that's going, and they've received a lot of positive feedback about that. Staying ahead of the achievement gap and making sure that the students are being assessed regularly, and making sure that all of those materials are updated as well from an assessment standpoint. Anything to add about that?
I mean, I think a lot of what happens that's prescribed legislatively like that when it comes to the READ Act and literacy, that's out of our hands as a board, but it's just about giving the administration and the teachers the tools that they need. So when admin and teachers come to us and say that they want full days of professional development instead of these halting half days that are harder to schedule and harder to really dig in.
Or quarter days.
Or quarter.
Right.
Where it's harder to dig in and do this professional development. It's just being responsive to what those folks need and making the changes that just make their lives easier so they can absorb everything they need to and turn it around and unleash on our kids.
Another area that the board has as a goal is some of our opportunities at the high school level to be future leaning in career and college pathways, and like our Vantage and Momentum programs. As a board, how do you gather input or hear from the district on topics about, what's next? Or do you have any thoughts on those things, like aviation or those types of programs?
It's just you're trying to listen as much as possible, and I think it's incumbent upon somebody who's on a school board or who works in public education to pay attention to societal trends and what's going on out there, being it the way AI and technology is changing how we work, or the increased demands for the trades that we're going to have down the road. It's just staying abreast of those needs and recognizing opportunities like aviation or our foreign language and immersion offerings when they come along, so that we can get those in front of our kids as soon as possible so they can develop an interest.
I think one of the things our community doesn't realize is, as a board, it's all the programs and all the grade levels each year. So there's a lot to keep track of. Another board goal, is belonging and connection, and there's a little bit of bullying prevention in there. How does that continue to be a board goal, or why? And how does the board view those goals?
Sure, I'll take this one. I think one of the things that I'm most passionate about is that students need to feel connected and like they belong to be able to learn, obviously. And this has been a board goal since Dan and I really started on the board. But what I've seen is that it's progressing beautifully within all of our schools. And we see this at each board meeting when the staff and the teachers and the principals come and present to the board. It's my favorite part of every board meeting. And most recently, Principal Freya Schumacher of MMW Middle School West came and gave us a great example of these awards that she has recently created called the Full Sail Awards. And they are done twice a year. And I think there are about 40 students each that the teachers and the staff select. And they select students who are not necessarily, they're not based on academic achievement, but they are based on, for example, a student who has a fantastic sense of humor, or a student who has perceived against challenges that, has like something that's really been challenging and they've worked through it and they've kept going. Things like that, and the response has been fantastic from the parents as well as from the students, that they've been recognized not just academically, but for something that makes them feel that they do belong and that they're connected on a different level than just acing a test or something like that. So I really thought that was a great way of feeling connected and that they belong in a different way than just studying. So we do get great examples of that with all of our schools, I would say, and it really does meet one of our goals as belonging.
I agree. That is one of my favorite parts of the board meeting too.
Yeah.
Dan, any other thoughts on belonging?
I think our job is just to make our community as city and all the cities and towns that make up the Minnetonka School District in our schools as welcoming as possible. There's a lot we can't control, be it what's going on with national politics or anything like that. And it's important that we just recognize that, some folks might be nervous about what's going on out there. Some folks might look to us for answers and things like that, and that we're just here to make sure we've got our communities back, and we're always going to be there for our kids and making sure that they're the most important people when they come through these doors.
Yeah. Our schools are about academics, but first and foremost, kids need to come in and feel comfortable and connected. Excellence in leadership and organizational support has been a big bucket of work this year. There are two things we're going to talk about: facilities and finances. And Dan, I'm going to lean first in on you on an update on finances, and why does long-term financial stability resonate more today than it maybe did 5 years ago?
Well, I think 5 years ago, and for the 10 years before that, Minnetonka had a really great run of increasing enrollment and not needing to cut its budget, and that's what's allowed us to build all the great programs that we have: Vantage, Momentum, everything that we offer to our kids in elementary and middle and high school and beyond. And we've just sort of hit a point in the state, and we're far from alone here, where there are financial headwinds facing a lot of districts. I know the three of us were at the Capitol yesterday speaking with our legislators, emphasizing the critical importance of funding public education. So our job is to be responsible stewards of the taxpayers' money and ensure that those dollars are here and used responsibly, and that we persist in providing the great programming that we've been able to. Yes, we've got to make some tough choices and maybe tighten our belt in some areas a little bit, but we're working really, really hard on the legislative front and the revenue front to balance that out as best we can, so we don't have to keep cutting in the future.
So one of the things community members might wonder is, why don't we just ask them? If we need more money, why can't we just ask?
That'd be great. I'd love to be able to just put this to our community members, but school district financing, you get onto the board and you learn about it a little bit, and it's really, really weird. There are lots of these different buckets of finance. You have a bucket of revenue and expenses for nutrition services and community education and facilities and general operating expenses, and you can't move your money between those buckets. So even if one section of your budget is doing really, really well and you have a healthy reserve, you can't necessarily move it over to make up for a shortfall somewhere else. And we're also in the position where we've got a very generous and supportive community, and we're at the state limit for what we're allowed to ask for. So that's why we were at the legislature the other day to ask them to increase those limits so we can go to our community for support to continue this programming and keeping these great teachers in our buildings.
You reference those buckets. One bucket is the operational side, the people, and another bucket is the facilities. And the board has a board goal about facilities. Do either one of you talk about why there's this facilities study And why would we consider doing that now if there's some financial challenges?
Yeah, I think that it's been 10 years since we have really done a referendum for facilities, from our understanding. And it's important to keep our buildings improving and looking, like we're coming into the next time period of keeping up with, our buildings are great, and Paul has done a great job of keeping them looking good. Mm-hmm. But now is the time that we need to, to start looking at improvements. And we went out to our community, and we have a wonderful task force has been about 10 months, 8 to 10 months of reviewing every single building that we have. And they did a fantastic job, headed up by Carrie Lindbergh, and really went through every nook and cranny of our buildings and talked to all of our principals and administrators, and really got a very thorough understanding of what was in need, and really boil it down to really the basics, I would say, of what was most important. And needing to really go out to our community and ask for that money that we have not done in 10 years. So that is a different bucket of money. So when we're talking about budget cuts, like Dan was talking about, that's completely separate from having to look at our other financial situations. So now would be a good time to do that, from our understanding.
And one of the things, Dan, you're involved in finance, our teachers made these recommendations. I think the original amount that was recommended was $190 million, and the board has winnowed it down to $85 million to be considered of the community. It's actually been 25 years since we've asked.
Has it been
25? Why would the board consider improving our buildings during budget cuts? I mean, you've talked about these being recommendations. We haven't made that decision yet, and that would come in August, but what would prompt the board to consider that?
Well, I mean, it's been 25 years. So we're talking about the year 2000, right? Think about how much the world has changed in the way we communicate and the way we learn in those past 25 years. A lot of our facilities are 20, 60, 80 years old in some of these buildings. And it takes constant improvement to continue to make sure the buildings and the physical facilities are suited to the way the world works, the way people communicate, and the way students learn now. COVID came along 5 years ago and drastically changed the way we learn and the way we collaborate. So yeah, even though we are facing a budget shortfall on the operational side, this is really a really modest investment that's focusing on the needs of the students and the principals in all of our buildings to just improve the educational experience. And they'll stand our buildings up just to be better facilities for years to come, in the years when hopefully we aren't facing these financial difficulties.
And one of those pieces that is in that ask potentially is safety in every single classroom in the district. So that's always, we hate to think that we have to consider that, but that is a consideration. The last piece I want to talk about is engagement, community engagement and student engagement. You've both been involved in some parent listening sessions, some staff listening sessions. Why is engagement in the board goals and so important to each of you?
Sure. Well, we need to be a reflection of the community and the students. That's our whole intended purpose. And I personally have enjoyed really going into all of the schools with you, and actually with Dan. We've been involved in quite a few of them, and really just being transparent and saying, tell us what's working, tell us what's not working. And we really want your feedback to make sure that our goals are reflective of what's working. And I think they've been really successful so far. As a board, we have also split up by board members, 2 of us, and taken on each grade level of the high school. So my grade level is freshman, yours is junior? Yes. And we've engaged twice a year, bi-yearly, with those groups. And you have said really, really wisely, we've been out of high school for a very long time, and your parents might think something is going on in the high school that is not really the case. So really talk to us and tell us what's going on and what we can improve upon. And I think that's been a really effective way to engage and get more student voice to the board. So that's one example. There's many ways, even podcasts, which you've invited students, and students are usually at the board meetings giving us a lot of good info. And so we've really, really used that as a goal to engage this year as well.
I think for me, and I've used this analogy a lot lately, like the great value in connecting with students and constituents as much as possible is that in our official business as school board members, sitting in the district service center, voting on resolutions, looking at the budget and everything that gets to us, by the time it gets to us, it's hearsay. You know, it's come through a lot of filters, and not that that's bad. That's the nature of the system, right? That's how it operates efficiently. But being able to get first-person impressions of the people who are living within the system on a daily basis, as the teachers and students are, or the taxpayers who are contributing to this system and understanding what their priorities are, there's no real substitute for one-on-one interaction and just those direct, frank conversations about what do you enjoy that we're doing, what's the value that we're providing that you'd like to see us continue doing, and how can we improve and leave this district better than we found it, which I think is the goal for all of us.
Putting you on the spot, you're midway through your board term, you're in year 2 of 4. What are you most proud of, and what are you most excited about?
I'm both proud of and excited about the middle school curriculum opportunities. I have twin boys in 7th grade at MMW, and just a couple weeks back we went through the list of all the new electives that were available to them. So it's really, really exciting to see just such a wealth of opportunity that they've got, something completely unlike what I was exposed to when I was 13 years old. So it's doing that, and then I'm proud of our work with the budget. It's hard work, but it's really, really necessary work and important work. And we've got a very, very serious job to do, being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And it's not always fun, but I'm proud that we're working collaboratively and being responsible and doing everything we can to maintain what we've got.
Kemerie.
I would say I'm most proud of being a new board and coming in and really working together very collaboratively. It's been a real pleasure to get to know these people that I did not know at all. We've had a really successful time so far. I'm looking forward to the challenge of the budget, because that has been, the school district finances has been a challenge. And so I have really appreciated Dan being kind of my right hand and helping me through all of that. And a challenge is what I'm looking forward to the most, because it's difficult. So once we get through that, we'll be on the other side of it, and that'll be a good thing.
Thank you both for being so sincere and honest about the role of the school board and the things you're working on, and some legacy already, some change that will last for a decade at least, hopefully. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. I know that you have other obligations, so thank you. Thank you to the community members who watched us on this episode of Ahoy, Minnetonka. I hope you learned a little bit about the behind the scenes of a school board member, and we'll see you again next time for Ahoy, Minnetonka.